So I'm going to cut my wall off at a 45-degree angle. You guys can see that. So with the bottle, it's a little bit different than the light bulb. I'm going to have a fourth part of my mold on the bottom of my bottle, and so I need to make a separate wall that goes along there. So your fourth part of your mold, we're going to build a wall around the bottom of the bottle. So if you cut your side walls at 45 degrees like that, you'll have a nice 45-degree guide. So just like with my light bulb, I've got my two side walls that are perpendicular to the surface of my bottle. And now I've added my third wall, and I've brought that right up to my parting line. And again, just like with the light bulb, I don't want my walls to blend together. I want a nice clean separation between the two. And I'm just going to clean up and push my clay wall snugly against the surface of my bottle. Okay, here's the completed first part of our bottle mold. You can see I've got a nice clean transition from the bottle to the wall. There's no gaps. Everything's really smooth. I've got key imprints. I've got 2 on one side, 3 on the other, and I've got 1 in this bottom portion of my bottle mold. So this is what's different about the bottle versus the light bulb. I've got the same seams on either side, but now I have a third one that follows the bottom rim of that bottle. And notice that it sticks out at about a 45-degree angle from the base of my bottle. And if you look closely, my parting line that I drew with my Sharpie is just visible. I've got plenty of support underneath my wall so that the clay wall won't fall off under the weight of the plaster. Okay, ready to plaster it. Okay, here's our completed first half of our mold, or first part of our mold. And you can see the plaster is nice and mounded up. You can see that's the bottom of our mold. Nice and even thickness of 1 inch thick all the way around. Nice and round. The tendency the first time doing this process is to flatten out the middle section. You want to make sure to mound it up so it's rounded. Now we're going to let our plaster dry. It'll take 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour to fully dry. Okay, we've completed our second part of our mold preparation. We have the first plaster part here done. I've supported that with clay underneath. And I have my second wall right along here completed. And I've got my wall for the bottom of my bottle here. That's the only difference between this and the light bulb mold. Before you start your plaster, don't forget to put your mold release agent on your plaster, your Murphy's Oil soap or your Vaseline. All right, this is ready for plaster. All right, here's our second part done. Look at how smooth I got it. So if you want it really smooth like that, you can just dip your spatula in some water just so it's a little bit wet, and then that'll help you smooth off the outside edge. Really glass smooth like that. Okay, so we've prepared our mold for the next step, which is our third part. You can see we have our first two parts here. I put my Murphy's Oil Soap, and I've got my third, ready for the third part of the plaster here, and I've put my wall here for that bottom section of my bottle, and I have my pour spout once again. So again, the only difference between this and the light bulb is this bottom section here, so don't forget to do that part of the mold prep. Okay, we're here now with the final phase of our mold of our bottle. So if you've been following along, our mold for our light bulb was in 3 parts, and the bottle, because it has the indent or dimple on the bottom of it, needs a 4th part. So we've done our 3 parts of the body. You can see 1, 2, 3 parts. And our 4th part is going to be just this bottom part. So I've just propped this up in a bucket so that it's nice and level. And I'm going to mix up a much smaller batch of plaster this time, because you can see I just need to fill this small area for the last part of my mold. And of course, very important, I put Murphy's Oil Soap on this portion of my plaster. And a little bit around the outside, so if I have some plaster that spills outside, it won't stick. Don't forget your mold release.
Is that good?
Okay, here's the final stage of our bottle mold. And so just like with a light bulb mold, we now need to scrape the edges of our seams and pop it open. So you can use your fettling knife, or you could use your Surform if you have one. You could also use a kitchen regular old table knife if you don't have a fettling knife. And you can start to see the seam line here right along there. If you've carefully scraped all of your mold edges as you're working with a wet plaster, you'll have much less cleanup to do on these edges, and your mold will come apart much easier. If you left a lot of plaster spilling over the edge of your mold, then it's going to take a lot more cleanup. So it's a case where being patient and doing the first step carefully and taking your time with it definitely pays off at the end of this process. So I can see my seam line all the way around. I can probably pop this right open. Just push in with my fettling knife and I can see it coming. There it goes. Pop that. There's one part. Second part. Here's the bottom of my bottle. And my last part here. Take off my pour spout plug. And I'll just do a little cleanup on my pour spout. cleaning up that outside edge. And you can see I have a nice clean mold cavity. I don't have any air bubbles in it. Nice smooth surface. Just clean everything up. Get the dust out. And then you can see how this goes back together. There's the three parts of the body. If I turn it around, you can see there's my nice pour spout, nice good opening. And then my last part here, which is what makes this different than the light bulb, you can see how I got all the texture of that bottom rim. I've got a little extra here. I'm just going to clean that off a little bit. And you can see why I built my wall on the bottom part at a 45-degree angle, because I want this to lock in place when I put it back together. And I have my mold keys, which are going to hold it. Now, which way does this go? I got to turn it until it fits. Where does it go? There we go. And if you've done that at a nice 45-degree angle, when I stand my mold up, that doesn't fall out. And that's the point of doing it at an angle. If you do it a little bit too flat this way, so that my wall is going around straight out from my bottle, this won't be held in place. And so I'll have to actually use some sort of a strap, a rubber band, or a tie to hold the bottom on. That's why I did it at a 45-degree angle like that. So when I put everything back together, that is held snugly in place. Okay, there is, here I'll take that one piece so you can see what the inside of this looks like. With the bottom piece in place. Okay, so that is my bottle mold. Here's the bottle that I started with, just so you can see it. Okay, and then just so you can see that versus my light bulb mold. Here are the first two parts of my light bulb. And then here's the third part. And there's the pour spout. All right, we are all set to cast.